afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you're listening to or watching from in the world. Of course, welcome to our special GBKM Canada Day live broadcast. And of course, it's Canada Day 153 years of being the true North. Are we strong?
We are strong.
Are we free?
Yes, we are.
But of course, I'm your host, Romain Redmond, host of the Alternative Show right here on GBKM FM. And I'm being joined by our lovely co-host here on the station. To my right.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth. I'm host of the Chat Up Show.
And of course, to my left, we have...
Hi, I'm Jagbe's Napoleon Ogboli. I'm the host of the Spotlight Show.
Yes.
Absolutely. And this special broadcast is all about Canada. And as you see from the topic, is Canada really the greatest country in the world? That's definitely something for us to ponder on today. But of course, Elizabeth and Jay here will help me to break that down right here on GBKM FM. And don't forget, guys, this is where you tune in, like, and share, as the discussion is definitely gonna get heated on this special broadcast. Of course, our platforms are on Facebook at Great Benin Kingdom Media. You can also check us out on YouTube, GBKM TV. Also get us on our website, www.gbkm.fm. You can also check us out on TuneIn app, it's GBKM. And don't forget to get us where?
To Instagram, it's GBKMFM.
And you can also get an app from our website and take us with you wherever you go in the world. So let us jump into it. How are you guys doing today?
Oh, I'm doing awesome.
Great.
Absolutely, but it's Canada Day.
Yep.
Red and white, as you can all see here.
Yes.
Red, white, and and black. Being complimented by black, of course. But it's all about fun and excitement today. But we also have some real discussions to get into. Because at 53 years, is Canada really the true North, strong and free? Or does Canada still need to do a little bit more work? Or a lot more work? I will definitely jump into that here on our special broadcast.
Special
But
Canada
of course,
Day broadcast.
Elizabeth, your thoughts on Canada Day here, 53 years, 153 years,
153 years. I mean, wow. Yeah, it's a long time. That is a very long time. But I will say that I think that in the last few years, just the changes that we're seeing have been steps in the right directions. I will say that this Canada Day is special, not just because we're in the middle of the pandemic.
Many ways.
But also I think that just the overall conversations that are currently happening across the world, I think we're in a reflective place, and to even just reflect on the history of the land that we're physically occupying right now, just it's important that we really take the time to pay respects to where we are. Like, this is the soil, this is the land, this is territory.
Absolutely. And Jay, 153 years though, I want you to just give us your perspective on 153 years for Canada.
Yes, amazing. 153 years. That seems like a long time, but it's and a lot of things have happened within that period of time. In this 21st century, I see Canada has really been able to step up, and the name Canada resonates with a lot of people now. It's more common. A lot of people are aware of this country, unlike before. And that's very impressive for me, because now when I travel abroad and I tell people I'm Canadian, they can actually relate to that because they know where I'm from. Okay, so Canada is really doing well. Canada has been a very peaceful place. Canada has been a place whereby there's several opportunities, and it's something that I'm very happy with. And every Canada Day, I love to celebrate. I love to go out to see the attractions. I love to spend time with family and friends, and it's amazing.
And absolutely, that's what celebration is all about. But on behalf of the entire GBKM team here, and I just got permission from our CEO and president, we want to say a happy Canada Day to you and all the Canadians out there, all your family, whether you're here in Canada or you're abroad. Happy Canada Day to you. This is a country which possesses so many opportunities for us to really thrive and for us to be peaceful, safe, and really live somewhere where we can actually realize our dreams. So thank you, Canada, for that. And with that, we just have a special display here for us as we talk about Canada being a diverse country, as we talk about that. So we're going to be listening to Tola Z and Rolak Z, his daughter, as they perform their very special Afrobeat twist, a remix to our Canadian national anthem. Definitely check this out. absolutely.
Love
That
that.
was the remix by Tolezi and his daughter Rolex Z. Amazing, isn't it?
It is.
And when we talk about Canada really being that place where persons can come together with their different backgrounds, different let's just put it like this: we're an immigrant nation. We pride ourselves on being an immigrant nation of multicultural existence, and that's definitely on display in that video. So thank you so much to Tolezi and his lovely daughter. I mean, I want to get some of those dance moves.
I know. I was feeling the sax. Honestly,
Yes.
like he killed it on
But
the
did
saxophone.
you see his daughter? How
His
she
daughter's
was dancing?
adorable.
Yes,
Oh my
that was
God.
It's so
my
adorable.
God.
You guys should
Talent.
check it out on Tolazi's YouTube page as well. If you want to see more of that and more of what he puts out there for yourself as well. It's really beautiful just to see like how we can all express our love for Canada in different ways.
Yes.
And it's a diverse, unique way. You know, the Afrobeat remix adds a
Yes.
little kick
Okay.
to it.
Yes, you
Feel
know,
a
for
little,
all
you know,
other African
you
brothers and
know,
sisters
Afrobeats is taking over the globe anyway. So
Exactly. And definitely. But guys, before we jump into further discussions, though, you know, GBKM always want to give you that excitement, and we always like to give you something, especially being Canada Day here. We have some special prizes here for 2 persons. So 2 persons, we are going to ask 3 questions. And the first person to get on each of the platforms that we're opening up for answers, you will receive a special gift from us. Okay, so let's dive into them. So the 2 platforms that we'll be accepting our answers on, they're of course on our Instagram, it's GBKMFM. That's again on our Instagram at GBKMFM. And you can also, on the live stream right now, if you're the first person to answer the question, we'll definitely just pin you there and get your prize to you. Wonderful. So the questions are 3 questions, and you have to guess all 3 answers correct.
3.
Yes.
Okay, so each of us are going to take one of the questions. Number 1, Elizabeth.
How old is Canada? That's the
Okay,
first question.
and repeat.
How old is Canada?
So that's question number 1. Question number 2, name the first Prime Minister of Canada. That's a Confederated Canada. Who was the first Prime Minister? Okay,
Yes.
Number 3.
And number 3, when Canada became a dominion, how many provinces were there?
How many provinces joined when Canada became a confederation? So those are the 3 questions. And the first person to answer all 3 questions correctly, you will receive a special gift from our GBKM team. Of course, we gift well, so don't worry about it. You'll definitely receive something wonderful. But Jay and Elizabeth,
Yes.
the discussion, let's jump into it.
Okay.
now. Is Canada the great country it poses itself to be?
That's a loaded question.
It is a loaded question, but let's just take it in steps though. As an immigrant,
Yep.
we're all immigrants. I've immigrated here. Jay immigrated here. Elizabeth is also an immigrant. So your experience in Canada as an immigrant, I mean, based on the things that you heard before you came, what you experienced and what you're looking forward to. Give us a summation of that.
Before I moved to Canada, honestly, I wasn't even thinking about Canada like that. It was a whim. I had to apply to university, and I was like, well, Toronto looks cute. And that's how I kind of ended up here, short story of it. And I think my impression was, they're all so nice.
Oh.
Like, everyone is so nice. Like, I'd only come to visit one time before, and I was like, everyone is so nice. And this is me coming from, like, Europe, where in most European, especially Western European countries, not everyone is as smiley. And
tempo
you're,
is different.
you know,
The temperature
like,
is
you
always
walk
that
into a
different.
store, you don't really get that nice welcome.
Yeah.
How are you doing today? You kind of get the stares, the side eye, maybe a security guard following you around, but that's another story.
Yeah.
It was definitely like a shock, cultural shock, when I find everyone smiling at me on the streets, people saying hi to me, and I'm like, do I know you? Like, do I know you from somewhere? But I will say that that was like my first impression of Canada.
So first real impression. And Jay, of course, your experience though,
Yes.
experience, was it similar to Elizabeth, or was it different?
It was quite similar because I've lived in 3 countries. My country of birth, Nigeria. I schooled in England, and I came to Canada. So my experience was quite similar as well, because when I came to Canada, one thing I noticed initially was people actually moved at a very certain pace. In England, when you're in Oxford Circles, you walk very fast. Everybody's in a rush.
Oh my God. Yeah.
But in Canada, you know, people were a bit calm. You know, they took their time. I noticed one of the first reactions I got, because in England, we are very friendly. You see people like, "You're right. How you doing?" And I say, "People, I'm so excited because I'm new to the country." I'm like, "Hey, how you doing?" They do respond, but they're a bit shocked. Like, "I don't know you, but why are you so friendly with me?" So after a while, I sort of settled in, and I realized that there's difference in in the environments here, the people, and Canada. One thing that I like about Canada is the amount of people from various countries I've never heard before.
Yes.
And when I see them, it's so interesting because I learn new experiences. I get new information from them. One of the first person I met in Canada was a lady from Guyana. I've never heard of Guyana before. She said she was Guyanese. I said, "Did you say Chinese?" She said, "No, I'm Guyanese." I'm like, "Wow."
Caribbean folks in there.
So yes, Canada is a great country.
What about you?
Absolutely. And I had a similar experience because coming from the Caribbean, as I said before, we grew up in the sense of we are all one community. The island is a community, and if you know Jamaicans, you know that Jamaicans are a community.
Yeah.
You just need to identify yourself as a Jamaican. So coming to Canada, the good mornings and the good afternoons, or just having those random conversations, wasn't anything shocking to me, right? Didn't like really place me outside of what I was used to. The only thing that shocked me a bit was how you live here, they live there, you live there, and you might not see them for an entire 6 months.
That's true.
Everybody's just busy and moving. Well, and I guess it's because it's winter. No one wants to be outside for 6 months of the year, right? When it's cold. But coming from a tropical island, people are always outside. We're always outside because you know what? Inside is very hot. And to keep inside cool and yourself cool inside, it takes a lot of electricity.
Yes, it
so
does.
we tend to have more of an outdoor living as opposed to an indoor living coming here into Canada. But my experience has been great. I mean, there are definitely some pitfalls in terms of some of negative experiences, but of course the positives outweighs negative to me. And I speak in terms of just the amount of opportunities which are available. I mean, going to university, getting that degree and seeing yourself endless in terms of the opportunities that might exist after graduation is optimistic.
I will say that honestly, like Canada's very easy with the immigration process, especially if you're coming with like studying.
Yeah.
Everything is like laid out for you. As like someone, like I do all of that mostly by myself just because it's so simple. But growing up as an expatriate and moving around, like the immigration process to me wasn't it wasn't new, but like it was like, oh my goodness, I have to go line up, this was back in the day when everything wasn't online. And you'd have to physically not that long ago. I mean, I'm not that old, but you'd have to like physically go to the consulate, like fill out the application, and then if one thing is wrong, that's it, you have to go back home. But I feel like the process for me moving here was just so like straightforward, so simple, and that was one thing that made it easier for me to like get used to the idea of moving to Canada, because I was like, okay, it was easy to, like, not easy, but like it was simple enough to get here. And like if an 18-year-old could fill out these applications and do it themselves, like anyone really could. But I will say, especially with opportunity, is that so many people like make things for themselves happen here, and it's like almost encouraged and like enforced that like do as much as you can to ensure that your dreams come true. And it's kind of like back in the day, with the American dream, like come to America and all your dreams will come true. I feel like now it's like the Canadian dream, come to Canada.
But in hindsight to that though, the Canadian dream to me and the American dream is two different dreams.
Way different.
Because guess what? You actually have a support system in place here in Canada that can help you to realize that dream. Whereas in the US, it's you better work hard as possible, and if you hit, you hit. If you miss, you miss.
Keep working.
Right? But of course, and that's one of the great things, and I'm speaking from a political science economics point of view here. I think Canada is really that interesting case study in terms of it's probably the only dominion, the only confederation that has two different models working at the same time. We talk about the U.S. style, kind of like a Senate, then the lower house, and then we talk about the parliamentary system, which exists in the Caribbean, here in Canada, in Europe, European countries, some African nations still have it. So it's that interesting mixture. And Canada is one of the only places in the world where I've seen that a political party can be completely obliterated one election,
I felt
then
that completely.
overwhelmingly elected at the other election.
Yes.
So
I
it's
felt
an
that one.
interesting case study from that point of view for me. So that's just my experience.
But
though.
I feel like that just goes to speak to like the Canadian people. Is that it's, you know, like, do we hold grudges? Maybe.
I would just say, but from the other perspective, it might be that we hold grudges because you know what? There are a few grudges being held. I mean, Stephen Harper still hasn't gotten over the grudge that people hold against him. But we're talking about it from a point of view where Canadian people expect the system to work
For them.
to work for them. Canadian people, when we go to the poll to vote, we vote on the expectation that you will do your job. And we aren't necessarily a partisan nation in terms of you can pinpoint at this very moment that we are conservatives or we're liberals or we're even NDP, right? Because it's just someone that will represent our interests. And that's a great thing in the sense that it holds politicians more accountable for what they do. We're probably one of the only nations where politicians have limits on how much they can spend during elections, have limits on how much they can actually take from people. I mean, when we look to the U.S., you have senators, you have politicians becoming millionaires just by sitting in the elected houses. And that's not the case in Canada. So it really speaks to a kind of like moral foreground in which Canada lies, right?
Yeah.
I
And
think so.
and I do agree with what you said, because one thing I realized in Canada, I like to say Canada, my experience has been best of both worlds, like you said, the American style, the European style, but most importantly, it's so multicultural. As a result of that, you have people from various parts of the world, so as a result, they hold people more accountable. Okay, so when you make promise, you better deliver, because come election time, you may not have that opportunity a second time. Yeah.
So it's a one-shot deal with Canadians. It's a one-shot deal with
Get it
Canadians.
right.
Get it right or go home. But of course, the interesting thing about diversity, we always speak about diversity in Canada. And when we talk about diversity, I think we're still number one in terms of the most diverse country. We still have, I think, the most diversity, which is Toronto. But you know what? In terms of that diversity, though, how do you see that diversity really translating into what diversity really looks like?
Like representation in all fields. Well, I mean, if we look at it from, you know, media perspectives, we see that a lot of places are lacking in diversity and lacking in the real representation we need to like see to reflect the people that they're speaking to, essentially. Because if it's such a diverse country, you'd hope that the stories, the things that we hear would be just as diverse. But I will say, definitely light years ahead of a lot of places in like different industries. But you know, that doesn't mean that we should slack either. Just because we're ahead in some instances doesn't mean that it's okay for us to sit back and be like, well, we don't need to do anything to continue to put our feet on the necks of people who are in positions of power to actually make these changes. Like, it's not like we can't relax just because it's better off than some other places.
And it's lovely that you said that, because one of the things that we're talking about is the fact that Canada tends to have this position where we can hide behind a whole lot of stuff. We can hide behind the U.S. because the U.S. is so terrible. And we can hide, we can parade ourselves on the global platform because we are the peace nation, the happy nation, the multicultural nation. But is that true? In the sense that, is that really what Canada is about? Is Canada really the peacekeeping nation that we posit ourselves to be? Is Canada really the vastly multicultural nation that embodies opportunity for everyone as we think?
I will say it depends where you are. Because if you go to certain parts of Canada, you will not see as much diversity as you may see in Toronto. So I feel like because like cities like Toronto, Montreal, like even Vancouver are put on the map as like, look at this, look at all the diversity, look at all these different cultures like living in harmony with one another. But then you start going maybe a bit further north or even east and you see less of that diversity. Granted, maybe it's because of climate. Ain't nobody trying to be that climate.
That is definitely, and that's a part of our negative experience. But back to what you were saying.
You know, it's a little too cold. But I will say that I think with these multicultural cities, I think that the diversity is represented, even in, if we look at like TV shows, music, we hear that. But if we start looking at other areas in the country, maybe it's not
decision-making positions in the country.
Decision-making position in terms of diversity?
We're talking about
Like
in
diversity?
business, we're talking about in politics,
In politics.
we're talking about, is it reflective? Because when we look at city of Toronto, where probably the minority population is really getting up there 50-50
Yeah.
in terms of non-minority groups and minority groups, one would think that, let's look at the current house. We just had the first Black Caucus unit installed at Queen's Park, because for the first time in history, we have like 7-8 MPPs being elected to the House. So that's but when we look at the economic side point perspective, in terms of leaders and companies and huge organizations, persons who really make the decisions about the cities that we live in and our province.
Yeah, I believe a lot still needs to be done.
Yeah.
You can see the diverse representation in the government, because, I mean, politicians, you look at the a certain area, and there's a particular people from a particular part of the world in that area. Let's say in Markham, you have a lot of Asians, you know, so they have no choice but to send candidates, you understand, who are initially Asians, okay? And so in that aspect, I believe things are improving. Like you said, with the Black Caucus, more Africans are getting involved in politics. On the economic side, in terms of wealth creation, I believe there's still a gap. In technology, yeah, because you have no choice, because you need the skill set. Yeah. So it doesn't really matter, you understand? And a lot of people from, I would say, minority groups, you understand, they have that technological skill set, and they've been able to prosper in that particular sector. But in terms of other aspects like wealth creation and having, big businesses, you understand, a lot still needs to happen.
And just going off that point, I think it like really goes back to even in the educational systems, like what opportunities are made affordable to certain like minority groups. Like, you know, that whole, like, I guess it's a old stereotype that if you're from an African or Caribbean household, engineer, lawyer, doctor, one of those three, anything outside, figure it out for yourself. Because you're on your own. Fortunately, I mean, like, you know, there are the exceptions to the rule. I'm one of them. But I will say that, like, with that, especially being an immigrant country, you know, people are coming with those same mindsets. And then when you're in school, kids aren't seeing that maybe they can really be entrepreneurs. They're thinking that they have to engage in what's already there, what's already established, which I think is what's aiding in continuing this generational wealth gap. Where now we're seeing a lot more entrepreneurs and small business owners coming up, and like really like speaking specifically to Toronto and like Black business ownership, that's become more like talked about, and it's part of the conversation more, and how we can support these small businesses, how we can support these people trying to create their own kind of generational wealth. But there's still that gap, because if we look at the foundation of it, we're still not given the same resources as the other kids maybe going to private schools, which are probably predominantly like white institutions as well.
Okay, absolutely. And of course, on that note, we're going to take our very first break here on our special Canada Day broadcast, 153 years. But of course, what we're going to have, we're just going to remind you of the questions here for the giveaway. So the first question is, how old is Canada? The second question, who was the first Prime Minister of Canada upon Confederation, and how many provinces initially joined Confederation? So definitely get to those fingers. It's on Facebook or Instagram, GBKM FM, and also on our live stream right now. First person on each platform will definitely get that gift. And of course, we'll take a very first break, but we'll be right back with so much more. Happy Canada Day, Canada.
Happy Canada Day.
Do you believe you could host an entertaining, engaging, and thoughtful weekly show? Or are you a business person or entrepreneur interested in building a brand for yourself? Can you connect with an audience and have strong social media skills? If so, the GBCAM network would love to invite you to join our team. We're looking for driven, genuine folks who are willing to work hard as an independent broadcaster. If this sounds like you, come join our team. For more information, email your resume to career@gbkm.fm. That is career, CAREER, at gbkm.fm. It's time to turn your passion into a career. Do you believe you could host an entertaining, engaging, and thoughtful weekly show? Or are you a business person or entrepreneur interested in building a brand for yourself? Can you connect with an audience and have strong social media skills? If so, the GBCAM network would love to invite you to join our team. We're looking for driven, genuine folks who are willing to work hard as an independent broadcaster. If this sounds like you, come join our team.
And course, welcome back to our GBKM special Canada Day broadcast. Of course, I'm being joined by our lovely on-air co-workers. Let me say colleagues. Okay. Elizabeth and of course Jay here, whose show will be debuting on Sunday.
Yes, guys.
So quite new to the airwaves, but of course not new to us. He has definitely been here. And quite a discussion we've been having on Canada Day here. Is Canada the great nation that it really is, or poses to be? Of course, we're getting into the details of that here on the show today. But of course, for all those who are just joining us, happy Canada Day to you. Happy 153 years. I know we weren't here 153 years ago, but we're definitely benefiting from what 53 years have definitely brought to us. And we're looking forward to what the next 53 years will, of course, be doing. Of course, this year has been the year. This year has been the year.
It's been a year. Let me say that.
I tell you, we started off with probably having World War III in January. Then it kickstarted to the coronavirus.
Yep.
Now we're having a global movement for change and prosperity for Black people. Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
And of course, the human race deserves to live peacefully, happy, free, and being afforded all the rights that every other race deserves.
Yes.
So Canada has taken the lead in terms of we are the great multicultural country.
Yes.
We are the greatly peaceful and place of opportunities. We are the new north. We are the true north. Let me say that. We're the true north where all your dreams can, of course, come true. But is that only a face, or is that the reality? We're talking with Elizabeth, and right before we went for the break, Elizabeth, we're talking about how the faces of the decision-making tables are really changing. More persons getting into business, or emphasis on really bringing up those communities that have been disproportionately left out. And we're talking about even our indigenous brothers and sisters over there. So just continue with you.
Just saying that, like, when speaking of these decision makers, and thinking of future generations, because there's only so much, you can do with the older generations. And when you're trying to bring up new leaders, it's really giving them, like, showing them the light, like, hey, this is what is an opportunity, and here's like potential and what's available to you to help make these things happen. And if these kids don't know that those are opportunities that are available, that can be afforded to them, then how can we continue to build this so-called great nation?
Absolutely, and we're talking about comparisons too between the Canadian experience and, let's say, our fellow down there as US.
No,
or US.
Let me comment a little bit.
Yes, the star producer Kenny and President
Kenny Bazwaye.
Yeah, hi. I'm coming in from the. We have Jamila, 153 years old.
153 years old.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have Lisa Jaden.
Okay.
She said 153 years.
Okay.
We also have Lisa Jaden that came back again and said the Sir John A. McDonald.
So Lisa currently is in the lead because she has answered
Two questions.
2 questions. So Lisa, you still need to give us an answer to the last question.
But we also have another person here, which is Olukemi. She goes 153 years old, and then she also said John A. McDonald.
Okay, so she has answered 2
she
questions.
also gave up, and she said she doesn't. I didn't get the third questions.
Okay, so let me just do a quick recap of what those questions are. So the first one is, how old is Canada? The second question is, who was the first Prime Minister of Canada, Confederated Canada? And how many provinces joined Confederation in 1867?
Yeah.
Oh.
So get to answering, guys.
So get to answering that question. But of
Good
course,
luck.
Good luck. So we have 2 persons on our live who has answered 2 questions out of the 3. We won't tell you if the answers are correct as yet. And we're still going to just keep check with our producer to hear what's happening on Instagram. But as we do that, we're going back to the Canadian experience, and we're talking about how great the nation is. I mean, we're one of probably the only nation, not the only nation, among the very few nations in the world that can offer, let's say, free healthcare. We have technically free university in terms of
For y'all.
access to student loans
Free
for
loans.
Canadians and permanent residents. For Canadian and permanent residents, we're only rivaled by Sweden, Switzerland,
Germany, too.
Germany,
UK.
and
I think even Belgium too.
Belgium, the UK, so our European nations. But our biggest rival, and I dare say our biggest rival, is the US, and everyone knows that. We compete with the US.
Whether we like to admit it or not,
not.
like
Okay, let's
we're
say
in
that.
competition, okay?
Because I don't think many persons are going to admit that.
Yeah.
But our competition is really the US, and it's rightfully so, because guess what? We share a border. We're increasingly closer
Yeah.
than many nations. This is probably our closest nation.
Yeah.
Depending on where
Unless you
you're
want to
looking
count like
for.
Greenland.
Yeah, and you're
Yeah.
going to count like the northern islands
Up
or
there,
so on,
yeah.
so on and so forth. Or if you check PEI is I think PEI is closer to England than it is to probably British Columbia. Something like that. But of course,
Interesting.
it is a great. So if anyone knows, just tell us on the live, of course, if PEI is closer to England or British Columbia
Yeah.
to our west. But of course, yes, in terms of access to those things, it really set us apart from so many of the nation in terms of really thriving, because we all know that a healthy workforce is a capable,
And a well taken care of workforce, because when the pandemic started, I think Canada was one of the blueprints for like providing those stimulus
Oh, yes,
packages
assistance, yes,
for
absolutely.
people and businesses and students as well. So that's also like speaks to what the powers that be are doing to ensure that Canadians are taken care of.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and it also speaks to, and it goes back to what we said first. Canadians expect their government to work. It compares to and we're going to make the comparison throughout the show. Compared to the U.S., right? Compared to the U.S., where it is you take care of yourself, you take care of the country. That,
We got two people coming
so our
in.
producers coming back
Okay.
here.
We have Lisa Jaden.
Okay.
She added to the two answers she gave before.
Okay.
She said 4 province.
For province, and she was the first one to say that.
Yeah, and then on Instagram we have someone here that gave 2 answers. One is 4 province,
Okay.
and 2 is the year, which is 53. She only have two answers on her end. That's Abiola, Abila.
Abiola.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that,
Thank
Abiola.
you.
We just made a note of that. And of course, we keep those answers coming in. Keep those answers coming in. And of course, we'll definitely get to announcing those winners right before we wrap on our broadcast here. So stay tuned. You just might be the lucky winner, okay?
Yes.
You just might be the lucky winner. And who knows what you're going to get in those gifts? I have it on good authority that those gifts are quite lovely, huh?
Yes, so I heard.
Absolutely. And in true Canadian style, 153 years, you definitely deserve a gift that's worthy of 153 years of Canada being the nation that it is. But before our producer gave us those updates, we're talking about how, in terms of taking care of our own, Canada is. And I'm just going to go to Jay here, because Jay, you have some insights into that, and I'm going to have you just compare that to your area of expertise. Of course, Jay is our in-studio African correspondent. I'm just going to say that for today. So
That's what we're claiming you as today, whether you want it or not.
or
That's
not.
what you
And
want.
of course, but Jay, make that comparison though, which when we talk about our African nations in terms of really taking care of our own, and then the Canadian experience. Give us some insights into that though.
Yeah, so with the Canadian experience, they really did well in terms of making sure that the economy doesn't collapse, you understand? Without the stimulus package, it did help everyone, including myself, who is a business owner. You know, so that was quite a very good thing that the government did to continue with increase the purchasing power of every citizen and make sure that everyone is able to, you know, fend for themselves during this lockdown. In Africa, I would say that some of the countries still have a long way to go, but there are some countries that did exceptionally well. Yes. And for me, I would say that the pandemic was sort of like a blessing to the continent, because it made a lot of government wake up to the lapses in the healthcare system and some of the challenges that people are facing, you know. So Africa still has a lot to learn. They still have a lot of things to do. But in comparison, I would say Canada did exceptionally well.
Absolutely, and of course, the reports definitely point to that also. Canada was ranked among the top 3 nations in terms of response. I know New Zealand stole the title.
Was on top of it.
New
from
Zealand
jump.
stole the title from the rest of the world. I think our U.S. counterpart fared at like the bottom of the list.
U.S. is still struggling though.
But of course, it speaks, and that's the thing you spoke about too. It's really bringing a light onto what should be prioritized by our governments. And I think what was majorly brought out, especially in this pandemic, is that the Doug Ford administration really got it in terms of their previous cuts to healthcare.
Yeah.
So I definitely don't think that would be something they'll be pursuing going forward, because if right now it's on the side of the people. We've seen how our hospitals got overflown in terms of we couldn't manage cases, we couldn't manage
not
testing,
enough equipment.
we didn't have enough equipment. But guess what? And I must commend Premier Ford on this too. You know what he said? We're gonna take things into our own hands and we're going to drive it. So he started contracting GMC to make masks. He started reaching out to our community partners.
Yeah.
And that's one of the great things about Canada too. We know how to really call on our brothers and sisters in times of need.
And I also appreciate like the transparency of like, listen, we're all trying to figure this out, instead of like, here's what you have to do. And like, no one really knows what's going on. And I appreciated like with Premier Ford's addresses, like just being able to be like, listen, like here's what we know so far, and this is what we can all do to ensure that we're all staying safe, and like this is how the government's going to help to ensure that. Even though of course everyone's going to have their, oh, but he didn't do this, oh, he could have done this better. Everyone, all like leaders across the globe were in a similar mess where they were trying as we go along to figure out how to help their constituents. So I think just taking charge and being open and honest and like taking control of that situation in the way that he did was better than what we saw in other places.
That's so true. And
down
I think
south.
what's and I think what's really like bringing to the fore right now is and what our Prime Minister or Premier would have learned from recent political events is that people need honesty, even when honesty is not
the best thing.
Not say the best
what
thing,
we're looking
but not
for.
the most easily digested.
There we go.
Yes, that's true.
Not the most easily digested, and I think that's what really made us shine. Because even in the midst of utter uncertainty, because I mean the World Health Organization didn't know, we didn't know, health officials weren't certain, but you know what? They came out and they said, let us do this, because at the moment this is the information that we have and we're learning on a day-to-day basis. And I think that really in terms of increased our politicians, increased their sense of currency for the next election. But what really struck me during this time is that everyone wanted to get involved, and I have my producer here just giving me another update, so we're just going to bring him in quickly. What do you have for us?
I have Tamara B. Ifua. She says, I'm going to read as she says, 10 provinces.
10 provinces?
Sir John McDonald. She gave 2 questions.
Okay.
Then let's go back to Instagram.
Okay.
We have Abby.
So Abiola was leading with 2 questions.
Abiola added 4 provinces.
4 provinces.
And then we have, still on Instagram, Olukemi. She said 153 years old, John A. McDonald's, and 4 provinces. This is becoming a battlefield.
It is absolutely, and we love you for participating in today's competition. By the time we wrap today's show, which should be in just under 30 minutes, we'll definitely have that update for you as to who the winners are, and we'll keep taking those questions. So if you haven't submitted as yet, get to submitting your answers, and we'll definitely get to those for you. But of course, we'll take a very second break here on the show, but we'll be right back with so much more on our Canada Day celebrations. You don't want to miss what's to come.
Yes.
For more information, email your resume to career@gbkm.fm. That is career, career, @gbkm.fm. It's time to turn your passion into a career. Do you believe you could host an entertaining, engaging, and thoughtful weekly show? Or are you a business person or entrepreneur interested in building a brand for yourself? Can you connect with an audience and have strong social media skills? If so, the GBKM Network would love to invite you to join our team. We're looking for driven, genuine folks who are willing to work hard as an independent broadcaster. If this sounds like you, come join our team. For more information, email your resume to career@gbkm.fm. That is career, career, @gbkm.fm. It's time to turn your
Canada, we stand up God for you, our glorious land. Canada, the true north, Canada, we stand up God for you, our glorious land. Canada, the true north,
Oh, Canada, our native land. True patriot love in all of us command. We glory nights, we see the rise, the true north, strong and free. From far away, oh Canada, we stand on God for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on God for thee. Oh Canada, we stand on God for
Canada, we stand up God for you, our glorious land. Canada, the true north, Canada, we stand up God for you, our glorious land. Canada, the true north,
And
Oh, Canada, we stand on God for thee.
Yeah, I was not hitting that note.
153 years. I'm not the best singer.
I was not hitting that note.
I'm just playing it for you guys. So for our audience, we're just playing it for you. But of course, this is how we do it at GBKM FM. We'll do anything to ensure that you're entertained, you're happy, and of course, you stay tuned in. Don't forget our platforms are of course on Facebook, Great Benny Kingdom Media. You can also check us out on YouTube with GBKM TV, our website
At
www.gbkm.fm.
www.gbkm.fm.
Oh,
You can
we're
also
doing
get
that.
us on Instagram, it's GBKM TV, and don't forget get our app from our website and take us with you wherever you go in the world. And if you've missed any of our broadcasts, you can of course catch us our live videos, which are always posted after, so you can just keep us with you when you do have the time, okay? But of course, Canada 153, and right now we're getting into some of those discussions. Right now we're going to get into it. Is Canada the great country that it is? Elizabeth,
Yes.
take us away with that, please.
Where to start? Where to start? I think it would be irresponsible of us not to take note of what's going on in the world. I mean, the U.S. across the U.S. Now it's going on over a month of protests in the name of Black Lives Matter and fighting for justice and equality for all. And I think that even in Canada, we've also had our own demonstrations as well. And this past week, there was the recent trial.
Yes.
That was...
Absolutely.
It was...
It was a verdict. I must say that. You know what? Because I watched the verdict being delivered. And basically what happened was it came down to a matter of objectivity, subjectivity, and from... if you understand what those words mean, is that really it's from each person's perspectives. So because of it was so filled with different perspectives, a conclusion could not have been made. Well, let's say a conclusion could not have been made as many persons, especially those in the Black community, would have wanted. And I must say this though, I thought it would have at least come down to aggravated assault. And I say this in terms of what the judge said. The judge said that the officers had enough time to say that they were making an arrest and identify themselves. That was one. The judge said at some point Devontae could have possibly had the steel pipe, but what is evident is that it was quickly taken away from him. What preceded was overly aggressive and excessive in terms of the beating multiple times, right?
He lost an eye.
He lost an eye and the severity of the injury. So I was anticipating, if not for the other charges, which included collusion and collusion on the part of the police officers.
But you think that the story of the police was inconsistent? Don't you think so? The pipe thing came a little bit too late.
Exactly, and then that was the other part of it, the inconsistency of the story, and I was just about to get to that part too. So first the judge says it's virtually impossible, not even virtually, it's literally impossible for Devontae could have been running with a 4-foot pipe in his trousers, right? So that is completely, he deemed it to be infactual. What was actually infactual again was that Devontae was the one to actually pick up the pipe. Right, so the judge deemed that to be infactual. What he said was, it could have been that he might have gotten hold of it, but to pick up the pipe when you're running for your life is not realistic. So that was an exaggeration on the part of the officers. And then when I heard what the actual verdict was, it really shocked me in terms of this was the best, even with all the objectivity and subjectivity which he laden his verdict with. It still was enough for me and an ordinary person to make a decision based upon what he said. I'm not going to say based upon my perception, but based upon what he said. Because if you're telling us that he couldn't have had the pipe in his pants, which the officer said he did, if you're telling us that he couldn't be running and then pick up the pipe, right, which the officer said, so you prove that to be factual, then why wasn't it aggravated assault? The mere fact that they refused to acknowledge themselves and then got on the call and said, you messed with the wrong person, and I'm just cleaning it up a bit, you messed with the wrong person today. That, to me, was evident to be an act of overly aggression and an act aimed at exacting revenge. So
and the fact that it was like a young black boy as well, it just speaks to the history of the police. I mean, even in Toronto, there's a history of like excessive carding of black youths in the city, like mostly young males as well. So I think that if we forget that this is from the same, like similar police.
And then that's how the collusion came in, because the police has, and I'm going to dare say, this toxic culture of we protect our own, but protect your own to what extent? You take an oath to us. You didn't take an oath to fellow officers. You took an oath to the people you serve. In that case, it would be the people of Toronto, the people of the Durham region, if you're RCMP, to the Canadian people, to protect and to serve. Right? So if you are protecting persons who you didn't swear to, but refuse to do so to those who you actually did swear to, then it's evident of something that's
an
going
issue.
on. And it's a systematic thing too, right? And when we speak of systematic, we speak of systematic in the sense that there's a long history of there being constant collusion and cover-ups within the police force.
Yep.
Yeah.
We know about what goes on. It's not something we're hypothesizing right
We
now.
see it, too.
It's clear, it's evident, we have heard of it before, we know of it happening. And what we want, especially in the black community, is for this culture of we protect our own to be obliterated.
Dismantled.
Absolutely. And greater
No.
levels of accountability to
Yeah.
be brought in. Right?
Yeah, and I'd like to add, because I don't have much facts about the case, so I
Yeah.
couldn't really comment that much apart from what I saw in the news.
Yeah.
But what I'd like to contribute to that discussion is the fact that as a policeman, you should be held to the highest level of accountability.
Yep.
Yes.
Let's go to the religious cycle. A preacher is held to that level of accountability. So why can't the policeman do that?
Especially as you are like representing
Yes.
the imagery of like protection,
And
right?
Yes, in service.
That is your that is the like they are the object of protection and service.
Yeah.
And so if the very people who are supposed to be held to this regard aren't being held accountable for their actions, aren't receiving near the same consequences as a civilian committing
Yeah.
such, let's call it crimes,
Yes.
it's crazy that like for so long it's these systems that have upheld their potential to like skirt accountability.
Yeah.
Yes.
For what reason?
Yeah.
Absolutely, and that's the thing too. And unless we have this change in the culture of the police force, and we're calling on all the police chiefs across, not just the police chiefs here in Ontario and in the different areas that they govern, but we're calling on for this like council of chiefs across Canada, law enforcement officials, politicians, stakeholders, the people, the communities, right, to really come together and iron out a new policing act, because I think that's what we need. We need to reinvent. We need to redo.
But
the
that's what
police act.
defunding police is about. Like that's why
Yes.
people are calling for defunding, because people feel that there's so much money being put into this force
Yeah.
that's not even doing what needs to be done to protect citizens.
Absolutely, and we hear of the comparison being made. The police force is probably the only sector of society when you fail, you ask for more
Money.
Yeah.
And you get it.
and you
Yeah.
get it. Because
Like-
you get it because you know what, people want to live in a safe community. People want to know that when they step outside their house, they're not going to get gunned down. They're not going to get abused. They're going to return home the same way they
Yeah.
left. People want to know that their property is protected. They want to know that should anything happen, I can safely leave my house and come back to everything that is in my house, that I left in my house. I can expect it to be there.
Yeah.
And that's why we're willing to put so much up just to have that. But if we have the force not really giving back
Or following through.
reciprocating exactly that same amount of trust that we have in them, right? And it comes down to that too, trust. Because I mentioned last night, I was just on a call with, and I got to put some questions to our police chiefs that's in Peel region and our mayors in the region also in regards to, we're talking about defunding and you don't want us to defund you. So you have to do something in the interim to kind of like regain that trust with us. And that includes training because we hear the complaints that entering into high stress situations that might put their lives at risk is scary. We understand that nobody wants to run into a gunfight. But you know what is needed then? If you're going to be this scared and you don't have enough training, as you said, that is needed for these positions, then we need to have you trained.
But then even
to at
speaking
least-
of the training,
Yeah.
and like this is picking up from our down south brothers and sisters, is we hear from ex-cops who are saying even in the training, a lot of these like racial biases are perpetuated.
Yeah.
Where if you see a black guy with a hoodie,
Yeah.
approach him because he's probably suspicious.
Yes.
But if you see, say, a Caucasian man loitering, well, he probably lives in that building, so just maybe give him a warning, or like be more aggressive with minorities and people of color because of the stereotypes of what we've heard about. So even in the trainings that we're talking about, like some people are being trained to be less calm under these stressful situations, and they get too trigger happy, or they feel like the power rushes to their head and like I'm in the position of power here, I'm going to take control of it. And then that's when we get situations like what happened with Devontae, like overusing their power to an extent that is not necessary, that is not needed to get the result that you want, is to either arrest the person, to give them a warning. What is it that they really want to do with this power that they have now? What they're showing us that they want to do is to aggravate, essentially assault as many people as possible, it seems. So then, okay, why? What is the reason?
Exactly, and I mean, and Devontae himself spoke about this in terms of after the verdict, that it's a step forward. And I look at the step forward that Devontae was mentioning, and his lawyer, in terms of, you know what, some strides were made in this case, but we did miss some crucial point. And I think the judge had a unique position in history, in terms of really, because, you know, case precedents tend to follow, to precede law, in terms of, had it been that he had just given the aggravated assault charge, it would, to me, and I'm just basing this based upon my legal experience that I have, and I don't have extensive, so don't quote me holistically on this, but I do have enough to understand what the judge meant when he said objectivity to subjectivity, and when he denounced certain actions by the cop. By denouncing and saying that the cop was lying to say that he had the pipe in his pants, that's one point towards aggravated assault. When he said they failed to adequately identify themselves and express that they were making an arrest, that's point 2 in aggravated assault. When the the emergency call recorded you saying you picked the wrong, and I'm cleaning it up here, person today to mess with, that's 3. When you're a police officer, you take an oath, you can lawfully make arrests off duty, but under the circumstances that you identify yourself, explain that you are making an arrest, and if you should call for backup, you have to identify yourself on that call, which the officers fail to do. So that, had it been that the judge had granted aggravated assault in that particular case, then policies could have been pushed to have the policing act change to recognize what that decision was, unless it was overturned, if they should choose to take it to the Supreme Court, if they should choose to take it to the Superior Court, then that is definitely, and especially if the Supreme Court gets its hands on that case and make a decision in favor of aggravated assault, it would be a change for policing in Canada. And I think the judge just missed his opportunity to be about what he's really saying, be about making that change, so that when a black person is pulled over, when a young man is pulled over, they don't have that initial fear of really dying on spot, that this is the last breath that I'm going to take. And I also must concur with what Devontae said too, because Devontae said I could have easily been charged. True, he did commit a crime and the judge let him slide on it. Right? A crime, the judge, let me say this, the judge deemed that a crime was committed, so he went into those cars to take the money. That's what the judge determined, and he could have been charged for it, but he was let go, so he doesn't have that lingering with him for the rest of his life. So that's a foot forward, because in the past that was not the case. You would have been charged with the crime initially, and then some.
Yes.
So that's definitely a step forward.
Yeah, and that's why we're having this discussion. You understand what makes Canada great? You understand, because when we talk about these issues and these challenges, you understand, we want our MPs and politicians to listen and make these reforms. You understand, police are to serve and protect. When I was growing up, I wanted to be a cop. I don't think I want to be a cop anymore. You understand? I'm sure if you ask a lot of kids, they'll say the same thing. You understand? The same way that the army have that trust from people, the same way the police. It's not a fraternity. You shouldn't be protecting your own. Each and everyone should be accountable. And this is why we're having discussion. Makes this country great, because we know Canada is listening. The government are listening. You understand? And the era of one country, the British Empire, the American, being the leaders of the free world is gone. So Canada, step up. You understand? Make these changes. You understand? Let the world realize that indeed in Canada, you understand, every life matters.
and we are truly about the diversity that we preach on the global scale. We have a unique position in history. We're one of the very first nations to come out and say, yes, racism does exist, and we're going to take those steps to ensure that it is eliminated.
To an extent.
To an extent.
Because let's not
All
forget
nations
our
to an extent.
indigenous brothers and
Yes.
sisters who are still going through it, and
Absolutely.
pipelines are still being built.
Yes.
And the fact that we were on lockdown, that was, the government really took advantage of that to push forward their own agendas, which, you know, indigenous folks have been protesting for so long.
Absolutely.
And
Even before the Black Lives Matter
Yeah.
protests and all that.
so, like, let's not forget as well that there's so much that still needs to be done, especially for communities who have been, like, put down essentially for so long.
And absolutely, and on that note, we must give a huge shout out to some of our amazing community partners who are really putting their foot on the necks of our elected officials and all the persons making the decision to ensure that we have a transformed 2021, have a transformed 22nd century, have a transformed later 21st century. If I can give a few shout outs here, some of our partners, the Ontario Black History Society, was really a champion for blacks or black community. So, the Chamber of Commerce. Who really is about, that's the Canadian, the Black Canadian Chambers of Commerce, was really about that economic upliftment of our community. GBKM-FM was really about getting the black voices
The mouthpiece.
out there. The mouthpiece, that's what we are, right?
The mouthpiece of the community.
That's what we are. But as we draw close to the end of our broadcast here, let me just get back to amazing discussions, I must say, Elizabeth
Thank you,
and
guys.
Jay. But we haven't wrapped this yet. Let's get back to some of those giveaways. Do we have any updates, Mr. Producer, on our live stream?
Not currently, but it has turned into a battlefield.
What's happening?
Oh, dear.
What's happening on our Instagram at the moment? Did anyone click the prizes yet?
Yes, we have, but it's just still the same people going back and forth, and this is why I declared it a battlefield.
Okay, so I can make the official declaration?
Sure.
Okay, wonderful. So congratulations to our two winners here. Thank you so much for participating in our special Canada Day 153 years giveaway. So the winner on our live stream is, drum roll please, Lisa Jaden. Congratulations to you. You came in first with all those three questions and answers. And another drum roll please. And our winner on Instagram is Abiola.
Whoa.
Abiola, congratulations to you. We'll definitely hit those DMs to get you your...
Slide in those
We
DMs.
definitely slide into those DMs to get you your gifts. And
Yeah,
of course,
if they
Lisa,
can DM us on our Instagram their information so we can deliver or arrange for them to pick up whatever they have won. Thank you.
absolutely. So of course, get in our DMs on, if you're on a live stream right now, just get in our DMs on Facebook, and we'll definitely, that is of course Lisa Jaden, you get your prize from our live stream on Facebook. And Abiola, please jump in our DM, hop in our DMs so you can collect your prize and we can arrange for you to get it. But of course, we want to say thank you so much,
Thank you.
all of you who are watching us today. A special thank you from my co-host here in studios. Go again.
I'm Elizabeth, host of The Chat Up Show.
And of course, to my left here I have...
Gervais Napoleon Ogbole, the host of the Spotlight. And do not forget, we are debuting this weekend, Sunday, July the 5th, 6 p.m.
And of course, I am Romain Redburn, host of the U-Alternative Show right here on GBKM FM. Happy 150 years, Canada. Happy Canada Day to all Canadians, Indigenous peoples, and all those who have chosen to make Canada their homes. It is a great country, and we can only make it better for the next 150 years. A huge shout out to my in-studio team here, our producer, Mr. Kenny Bazwa, a huge shout out to our GBK FM for putting on this live show, all those sponsors behind the scenes who keep us going each and every week. And of course, thank you so much, our audiences, whether you're on Facebook, you're on YouTube, you're on our website, you're on our app, you're on TuneIn app, wherever you are, even on our Instagram. Thank you so much for joining us on a special Canada Day broadcast.
Yes.
And as we depart, what do we want to say?
Happy
Canada Day!
153 years!
Stay safe, you guys.
Yes.
Canada, Canada, we stand on God for you, our glorious
passion into a career. Do you believe you could host an entertaining, engaging, and thoughtful weekly show? Or are you a business person or entrepreneur interested in building a brand for yourself? Can you connect with an audience and have strong social media skills? If so, the GBCAM Network would love to invite you to join our team. We're looking for driven, genuine folks who are willing to work hard as an independent broadcaster. If this sounds like you, come join our team. For more information, email your resume to career@gbkm.fm. That is career, CAREER, at gbkm.fm. It's time to turn your passion into